But I did want to, and I suspect Amy might too, because Amy and I have been talking about this question for years, on the abortion question. I think there is far more openness now among progressives and liberals, whichever word you want to use, to an agenda that is about reducing the number of abortions in the United States. There was a study done by the WHO and the Guttmacher Institute last year that showed that whether abortion is legal or not actually has very little effect on how many abortions there are. And I'm sure there are people who dispute these findings, but it seemed like a pretty good study to me. And so making abortion illegal may not end up being the best path to reduce their number. The abortion rate dropped 11%. Our abortion rate is higher than in other nations where abortion is legal. We ought to be able to do much more about this. And so it may not be pro-life in your sense, where you believe that abortion should be rendered illegal. But I think there's a much more pro-life sentiment, as I am defining it here, that reducing the number of abortions is actually a moral imperative. And paradoxically, for liberals and pro-choice people, almost everything you would do to reduce the number of abortions are things that in other contexts, liberals and progressives would approve of, not only on the preventing unintended pregnancy side, and that includes a mix of contraception and abstinence education. And I don't care what anyone says about abstinence education. Anybody who is a parent, any liberal who is a parent of younger teenagers is more sympathetic to abstinence education than they let on. A conservative friend once said that a social conservative is a liberal with a daughter in college. Which is not entirely true, but there's something to that. But on the other side, helping poor women who want to choose life to have their children, which means giving them economic support, which means making sure that they have health insurance. These are things liberals are for anyway. And they could have the effect of reducing the number of abortions. I think they would have the effect of reducing the number of abortions.
Jamie, Amy,
I just wanted to add one point to what E.J. said, that that's happening on the side of Catholic Democrats a lot now as well. That for a long time they were operating under the Mario Cuomo formulation of, I'm personally opposed to abortion, but my position doesn't allow me to force my views on anyone. Now we're seeing a whole new generation of younger Catholic Democrats who come into politics a little later and don't know that's the line they need to take, who say, I'm personally opposed to abortion, and here's what I'm going to do to reduce the abortion rate. Now, they're not talking about using restrictions, and we can debate over whether that's effective or not. I have on E.J.'s side that lining up all of the abortions that were limited because of something like the partial abortion ban or parental notification laws in states where teenagers weren't able to get abortion very readily to begin with. I think you can argue that putting your focus on a combination of more contraceptives and abstinence efforts and providing economic support for women who want to have their babies, I think there's a very strong argument to be made that that is actually as pro-life and perhaps even more pro-life in terms of the reduction in the abortion rate. And that then does two things. One, it makes it possible for voters who are pro-life. Remember, a third of Democratic voters already are pro-life, so it's obviously not a complete step on the wash for them to support Democrats. It gives them a chance to say, well, you've met my threshold here, and now I can look at all these other issues that also matter to me, and maybe in that case the Democratic Party lines up for me better than the Republican Party. But the second thing is that this really is, as much as anything else, an image problem the Democrats have. I think there's been a lot of institutional pushback in terms of preventing or protecting Roe at all costs, and that has been a problem for the party in terms of being willing to move forward and find any common ground. But so much of this, when I talk to Democratic leaders for my book, they would say, well, it goes without saying that we think that the abortion rate should be reduced. It goes without saying that we would want to prevent unwanted pregnancies. Well, it obviously doesn't go without saying because most of America thinks of the Democratic Party as pro-abortion. And that's what you hear over and over again when you talk to religious conservatives and pro-life Americans. And to the extent that the party is not pro-abortion, they need to take that into consideration. I would agree with Mike that both Senator Obama and Senator Clinton have during the primary campaign, considering how open the two of them have been earlier in terms of talking about the moral problems of abortion and being more open to pro-life voters and candidates.